good evening. Welcome to the Tunnel Podcast, episode 38 of, yes, you guessed it, the greatest podcast in the world. Delighted to say I'm joined, as always, by the main man himself, Tom Goff. Tom, how are we doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Yeah, payday today, mate. You know, it's a tough one, isn't it? It's a tough one, January. It's a slog. So we picked the kids up from school, mate, straight to KFC. You know it's payday, isn't it, when you just straight to KFC.
What did you get from KFC? What was the order?
We get like boneless bucket thing, mate.
Like
share
banquet,
it. Yeah, get it on the go.
That deal they're doing at the minute, the 2 zingers, 2 hot wings and 2 drinks for £6 looks ideal.
That's pretty stellar, man. Yeah, mate. I know, like, we're completely going off track here, but like, we were always McDonald's family. We were, and then we worked it out, like, with the buckets and stuff. Like, there's some deals to be had, like, and you can fill everyone up. So we've been KFCing it of late, mate, and it's been good value for money. So yeah, I had a cheeky little KFC, so well fueled for this, bud.
Happy with that. Okay, listen, we've got loads and loads of football to talk about. Never mind KFC. Couple of turkeys in there, right enough. But yeah, look, we're going to start right at the top with some news that came out. International stuff. You know, we started this podcast off covering the Euros. You were very vocal about Gareth Southgate wanting him gone. We spoke about Thomas Tuchel when he got announced, and he's come out this week and said that he'll be looking at the championship for talent, and people won't be left out. What was your kind of initial thoughts when that story broke kind of earlier on in the week?
Yeah, look, mate, I don't want to sound... Look, first and foremost, I'm glad he's come out and said it, because I don't know. I don't know if Southgate, you know, I don't want to kind of criticise him if he has come out in the past, you know, in his time as England manager and said he was looking into the championship, but he obviously... there wasn't any call-ups, was there, from the championship in Southgate's time in charge? And you know, I'm just glad that Tuchel's come out and said what he said, in that, you know, he's not just going to focus on the Premier League. He's going to look further afield. He's going to look at the championship. He's going to look at, you know, English players playing abroad as well. You know, really widen the net, in terms of kind of scouting, you know, and getting ready for his first England squad. So look, I'm really glad to hear him say that. But then it's the old classic, isn't it? The proof's going to be in the pudding with that first squad selection. And look, I was kind of having a look at potential players. I know there was talk of kind of Joe Bellingham. He was the kind of player that was kind of leading the discussions, wasn't it? And the debate about, you know, what Tuchel's come out and said, and what players could potentially make the jump into the England squad. And Joe Bellingham was the name that was getting thrown around quite a bit. Look, we've said it many a time on this podcast, in that gap between the Championship and Premier League is just seemingly getting bigger and bigger as each season passes. And, you know, look, Joe Bellingham is one of the brightest talents in the Championship. He's obviously English as well. You know, we all know about his brother, who his brother is, etc. But then you look at kind of who he'd be up against, you know, getting himself into that squad, and it'd still be incredibly difficult for him to kind of get ahead of some of those names. And, you know, and that's arguably, you know, the best midfielder in the Championship at this moment in time. So, yeah, what I'm trying to say is, whilst I'm really glad that Tuchel's come out and said it, and look, I believe him. I think he's a modern coach, isn't he? No doubt he's gonna work hard in terms of, like I said, sending that net out as far and wide as possible, and looking at all the options available to him. As to whether anyone will get called up for from the Championship, I'm highly doubtful, mate. I'm highly doubtful. I know that's a bit negative, especially when you consider, you know, it's a Championship podcast and we're meant to be doing, you know, everything to kind of promote the Championship and so on. I just think it'd be incredibly difficult for a Championship player to get in that England squad. and dislodge, some of the names that that are in there, etc. So, yeah.
You say there about Joe Bellingham, if he's going to struggle to get in. Kobe Mainoo broke in during the Euros. He's not been playing much football this season. Obviously linked away with moves away from Manchester United as well. There's a lot to be said for picking players in form.
Yeah, definitely. And that was probably the biggest criticism I had of Southgate and his time in charge, is that he didn't do enough of that. He didn't do enough of picking players in form. There was he did have his favourites, and he stuck by them even though they were performing badly at club level. Yeah, and that was the biggest gripe I had with Southgate. So yeah, it's a valid point. It just all comes back to that, to, like you said, that kind of gulf between the two divisions, mate. That gulf in class, and just even though, like you said, the likes of Mainoo, who hasn't been playing regularly for Manchester United, I just think that the experience he would get from just playing 10 games in the Premier League is gonna have a bigger advantage than someone like Bellingham, who's playing consistently week in, week out for Sunderland in the Championship. That's just my opinion. That's the gulf I just feel that we're at right now. In terms of the Premier League and the Championship, it's just in terms of Joe Bellingham, look, I think he will become an England player one day, but I genuinely believe that it will take either Sunderland getting into the Premier League and him playing Premier League football regularly, or signing for a team in the Premier League and then playing consistently for them before he gets a call up. Look, I could be wrong.
He only got his first under-21 cap back in November. Well,
this is it. And look, I was having a little look in the lead up to I was having a look, and look, the under-21s have always had. There's always been a good proportion of the under-21 squad has been from the Championship for as long back as I can remember. And I was looking at the under-21 squad, like the last under-21 squad on Transfer Market, and like you said, you've got Joe Bellingham in there. You've got a few lads from Norwich, Callum Doyle, Kellen Fisher, James Beadle, who's obviously at Sheffield Wednesday at the minute. So look, there's always, there's the under-21s have always got a good mix of Championship players in there. But then, I just, more times than not, those guys then either get promoted to the Premier League, or they end up moving to a bigger fish, signing for a team in the Premier League before they then get their call up, for the senior squad. And yeah, look, I would absolutely love it. And, and I hope I'm proven wrong. I'd absolutely love it for Tuchel to surprise everyone and include a couple of Championship players in the squad. Look, I was trying to think where I think maybe somewhere. I think the only position I genuinely believe where I think someone could maybe get called up is the left back position. Look, left back is a massive issue for England. It has been for a while now. The consistent injuries to Shaw and Chilwell. That's the only maybe position where I feel like he could look at the Championship and think there's some good young left backs, English left backs in the Championship, who I could give a chance. I could, just even call up to the squad and see how they get on in the training sessions. Likes of Kirkin at Sunderland, the likes of Burrows at Sheffield United, Doherty at Luton. He did incredibly well for Luton in the Premier League last season. I know he struggled with injuries this season, but he's proven he can play and perform well in the Premier League. So that's the only spot I genuinely believe there could maybe be a door open. I just feel everywhere else, I just feel there's just too many players ahead of the Championship. Select. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I just think it would be too difficult for him to dislodge anyone ahead of him.
The other name that was mentioned was obviously James Trafford. Is that an area of opportunity? Goalkeeper. I know Pickford's pretty much got the number 1 jersey sewn up, but in terms of if you're going to have maybe a couple of young upcoming in there and around him, Trafford's obviously he was in the provisional squad, wasn't he? And got chopped. I don't think he's had his debut for England yet, but he was certainly in a squad prior to that as well. Made the big save to win England the under-21 Euros. Cole Palmer raves about him, says he's absolutely incredible. He's played with him through the youth ranks as well. So, are you shocked that it's him and it's not maybe a Cooper or a couple of others that we've mentioned in the Championship this season? He seems to be quite a flavour of the month, doesn't he? Travelling in the England setup.
Yeah, well, that's it. Look, he's foot's through the door, isn't it? In that he's obviously been playing consistently for the under-21s, like you said. He was a star performer in that tournament. I remember he saved the penalty, didn't he, right at the end of the game, which basically stopped the game going into extra time and won England the tournament. And yeah, look, and you can't look at how well he's performing for Burnley this season as well. Absolutely incredible season so far. The amount of clean sheets they've had, he's played a massive role in that. I think they're set to beat some sort of record, I think, soon, if they can keep a couple more clean sheets. So he's having an amazing season with Burnley. But again, look, I know he's already when Carsley was in interim charge, he was brought into the senior squad and was obviously involved in a couple of the senior camps, etc. But again, I just feel that no one, no goalkeeper will get a good shot at that number one jersey unless they are consistently playing in the Premier League. Again, the caliber of opposition the goalkeepers are up against, in terms of shots that they're getting faced, etc., etc. I just feel like the England coach will want that goalkeeper to be playing in the Premier League, experiencing, facing world-class players week in, week out. And we kind of had a little bit of a joke about it that Carsley called up a couple of his lads from the under-21s. It was kind of, we had a little bit of banter about it, didn't we? And we felt Trafford was one of them. But look, he is a very good young goalkeeper, bright future ahead of him. But again, I just think if something was to happen to Pickford, I genuinely think it'd go to someone like Henderson at Crystal Palace or Pope at Newcastle, someone like that, before it went to Trafford, who was playing at Burnley. Do you know what I mean? I just feel those people ahead of him. Again, there's just too many people in front.
You go on about facing or wanting them to face world-class players, but look, they're in a group here with Serbia, Albania, Latvia, and Andorra. You telling me that those guys are better than guys that they're facing in the Championship week in, week out?
That's a very good point. That's a valid point. And look, they would be your games, wouldn't they? To if he was going to experiment and give someone
blood them in.
Yeah, blood them in. If he was going to give them a chance to prove that they could integrate and do a job alongside the guys playing in the Premier League, well, you're absolutely spot on. Those are a bit of games that you'd want to give him a chance. But then my counter argument to that would be, Tuchel, right from the very start of the qualifiers, will be thinking about the next major tournament and getting his starting 11 locked down. So whilst we'll be playing the likes of Latvia and whoever, some of these European minnows, I think the forefront of Tuchel's mind would be, I want to get my starting 11 locked down, ready for that major tournament. So, but look, like I said, mate, I know it is a bit negative. Like you said, we love the Championship, and we kind of sing from the rooftops its praise, how good a league it is, etc. So I'd absolutely love Tuchel to call up a couple of players from the Championship in his first squad, but yeah, I'd be very surprised if he did. And look, this is going to sound a bit salty. This is a bit controversial, but I think like if Bellingham didn't have the Bellingham name, I don't think he'd be getting talked up for a call up to the England squad as much as he has been. Honestly, mate, that's my take. Look, I'm not saying
that's a cross he's going to have to bear, and he's never going to get rid of it, is he?
He's not.
It's not the lad's fault.
It's not his fault, 100%. But the point I'm making is, I think there's probably some there's young English central midfielders of similar caliber to Joe Bellingham at this moment in time. There's some really good ones. We talked about, Hackney at Middlesbrough and Arblaster at Sheffield United. There's quite a few of them at this moment in time who I don't think are a million miles away from Bellingham, but I think he's the one who's getting talked up about potentially breaking into the squad just because of who his brother is. I'm not, like I said earlier on, I think he will become an England international at some point. He'll be playing in either the Premier League or one of the top European divisions sooner rather than later, that's for sure. So it is only a matter of time. But I think in terms of right now, he's getting talked up because he's Jude Bellingham's brother.
Okay, well, listen, it just seems a strange thing for Tuchel to say now because there is going to be eyes on it. Someone somewhere, probably us, will be watching and making comments. So, it seems a strange one to come out with if you're not going to act on it. But as I say, there's plenty of opportunity within that group, that World Cup qualifying group, to give these guys a chance and see if they can do it. So we'll keep our eyes on it. Okay. Let's move our eyes over to the weekend championship action. So there's loads and loads of games. We're obviously at one, which we'll come on to in due course. But we want to start at Derby County. No wins in 6. Haven't won since Boxing Day against West Brom at Pride Park. I wondered how you were going to react to that. Paul Warner's under pressure now. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, 100%, mate. We had a Derby fan on, didn't we? Really early doors in the season, and we were having a little chat then that there seemed, before the season even started, there seemed a proportion of the fan base who weren't really keen on Warne. His tactics, his approach. Some of the stuff that he comes out and says in some of his post-match interviews, a bit of a controversial figure. And yeah, like I said, there's a proportion of the Derby fan base who weren't keen on him right from the off. I think then they had a fairly decent start to the season, considering they came up from League One last season. Most people would expecting them to be in a bit of a relegation scrap, especially when you look at the kind of squad available to him. They made a couple of signings, but still, it's very much a League One squad, isn't it? When you go through the names, but I think there was definitely an element there that the Derby fans were thinking, well, look, if we're picking up enough points and we're kind of sat mid-table, then we got to wind our necks in a little bit. We can't complain too much because he's doing a good job. We're exceeding expectations at this moment in time. But then, like you said, it's all kind of gone downhill of late. This tricky Christmas, New Year period. Like you said, I think they've lost 6 on the bounce, haven't they? I know you said they haven't won in 6. I think they've lost 6 on the bounce.
Yeah. And listen, and in between that, being knocked out of the cup by Leyton Orient.
That's it, yeah. Just to kind of rub salt in the wound, like you said, they got knocked out of the cup by Leyton Orient, and this is it now. That those guys at the start of the season who weren't keen on Warne, their heads are above the parapets now, and they're kind of screaming out that it's time to get rid. We don't want him in charge. We're on this terrible run. We've gone into the relegation zone now. Now's the time to get rid, bring someone in to try and keep us in the division. And like you said, a few teams have obviously, we've discussed it on the pod, chopped and changed, brought in new managers. It's proved successful for them. They've managed to climb the table, distance themselves from the relegation zone a bit. So, yeah, look, again, it's a bit of a cliche. I feel like they have to. He's got to start picking up points soon, because I do feel like it will only be a matter of time, because I do feel like that he's lost a good proportion of the fan base already. And as we've said with other teams, as soon as you start losing the vast majority of the stadium, then it's only heading in one direction, isn't it? And look, I think that the problem for Derby is they were very good defensively, weren't they? The first chunk of the season, they were very difficult to break down. They were kind of sitting deep, frustrating teams, hitting them on the counter, scoring from set pieces, making it difficult for the opposition, really forcing them, and they were having to work to get past them and get through them and get on the score sheet. But this is the thing: in the last 6 games, there's just looked a real kind of fragility to them. They've been conceding sloppy goals, defensive mistakes. The defence is looking nervous. Midfielders are looking nervous, giving the ball away cheaply. I saw the goals that they conceded against Cardiff. The goalkeeper has probably been one of their best players this season. Even he started making, a few mistakes, which are leading to goals.
He was culpable at the weekend, wasn't he? He
really
was.
Definitely. So yeah, it's not looking good from at the minute. I was just reading a bit of a little bit of a piece on the BBC football website, and yeah, it's not looking good. There's a couple of players who've come out and they're trying to get behind the manager and get behind the team and try and get the fans on board. But from what I've seen on social media, the vast majority of fans are calling for his head. They want someone new in to try and improve things and try and get him climbing up the table.
You mentioned there that they're on their own. The worrying thing, if you're a Derby fan, is in 4 of those games you've drawn a blank. Now, I know at the weekend, the new man, the big Norwegian striker, whose name evades me, Salvesen, he got his goal, didn't he? I just feel like that seems to, you're shipping loads of goals. I watched Derby the other week at Sheffield Wednesday, shipped 4, and to be fair, they didn't play that badly. But it's just, as you say, individual errors are costing them. And, we had Vic on here start the season from the Derby County podcast, and he wasn't, waxing lyrical about Paul Warren, saying that he was very much a League One manager, as you said. And, you were getting close now to, do you bite the bullet, or do you carry on with him? Because, we're entering into February now. You're leaving the new guy, not a lot of time. He's not going to be able to bring in any of his own players, whether he comes in before the weekend. Doesn't look like they're going to sack him anytime soon. So it's a real difficult situation.
Yeah, that's it. You're spot on. It's a difficult situation for the board now, because you've got to ask yourself, like, what are our chances now of getting relegated? Well, they're quite high, aren't they? And like you said, if we were to get rid of Warren now and try and bring someone else in, well, there's absolutely, like you said, no time for him to bring any new players in, build the squad to their liking, because the transfer window is going to be closed. They're going to have to work with what they've got available to them, which, like we've just discussed, is very much a League One squad. So, look, if I was the chairman of Derby, then you've potentially got an eye on next season in League One, and whether you're thinking then is, well, I'll keep hold of Warren because he's got plenty of teams out of League One into the Championship. Do we hold on to him? Look, he might be able to turn things around. This is very much his group of players. He's shown earlier on in the season that he can get a bit of a tune out of them. They were competing. They were making it difficult for the opposition. Like I said, they were kind of in and around mid-table for a good period of time. So, whether that's the kind of mindset, we obviously don't know. But if it was me, I would potentially be leaning more towards that, in that you've got a manager there who can get teams out of League One.
Listen, Derby fans are not going to swallow that. If they go down this season, they are not going to swallow that. They're not going to want him there in charge.
That's what I was going to lead on to. That's the sensible kind of mindset and logical decision to make. But with football, as you know, as soon as you lose the fans, if all of a sudden, I've remembered times when the manager he's lost the stadium and it's just an absolute horrible atmosphere. And the crowd almost make the decision for the chairman, whether they like it or not, whether they've made their mind up or not. Sometimes the fans make the decision for him, don't they? And I just feel like, if he can't turn things around quickly, then regardless of whether it's a sensible decision or not, and one eye on next season, I think that their hand will be forced. They will have to get rid of him.
I listened to post-match, obviously, against Cardiff, and coincidentally, Omar Rizza, I did not expect him to sound how he sounds. That's the first time I'd heard him on. ITV. He's like some little London bad man, isn't he? He needs a little man bag and a gilet. He was, just stood outside a kebab shop. It was very odd. I wasn't
He's
expecting
got
that.
roadman vibes, hasn't he? He has got some roadman vibes.
He really has.
Yeah.
But yeah, Paul Warren was just saying that they're struggling at the moment because they're not getting that first goal. So when the first goal, come on, give him the benefit of the doubt here. And he's saying we've got to learn to bend but not break, which was straight out of the self-help book. But he said we've gone soft. As soon as a question gets asked, we don't step up to the challenge. Now, I heard Darren Ferguson this week call his players soft at the weekend. If your manager's turning on you and labelling you soft, it's the writing's on the wall.
Yeah, that's it. Well, he had a couple of post-match interviews, didn't he, earlier on in the season, where he said a few kind of suspect things where we felt like, well, I'm not too sure how the dressing room's going to take that. We said at the time, didn't we? Well, it's either going to kind of rejuvenate them and they'll be determined to prove him wrong and prove a point, or it's going to have the complete opposite effect, and it's just going to make the situation even worse. To be fair, at the time, it didn't seem to affect them. They kind of carried on plugging away and picking up enough points to kind of keep out of that relegation dogfight. But yeah, it's a different situation now that they're well and truly, in the mix there. Like I said, I think they have, haven't they? They've dropped down into the relegation zone now, I think, with that defeat at the weekend. I'm just double checking. Yeah, they've just slipped into the relegation zone now. So yeah, is that hardline approach, coming out and saying stuff like that, going to help? I always feel like if you're down there scrapping, you're in the relegation zone, I always feel like the best approach a manager can take is more of a kind of arm around the shoulder, trying to support your players, trying to encourage them. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, because listen, even in any walk of life, if confidence is low,
you
don't start berating someone to get the confidence up. It doesn't work.
That's it, mate. And like we've said, it's a bit old school, isn't it? We were having this chat at the weekend, weren't we, about these kind of the old school managers and a bit of a dying breed, and how they, their man management style and their interviews, etc. And I think definitely Warren's he's got a bit of that about him, hasn't he? It's definitely got a bit of old school manager vibe about him. So yeah, I don't think it's the right thing to be doing at this moment in time. Look, he's probably thinking, well, I did it early on in the season and I got a reaction out of him. It might work again, but yeah, it's a tough one. And then look, who have they got? They've got Sheffield.
Hold that thought, because I want you to feed this into the next point I was going to make. So about who they've got next. We've spoke on here about QPR's form and how they turned it around and they went up the way. You referenced earlier on, speaking about Derby, how we actually praised them and said, they've started the season okay. They've been picking up points here and there, the mid-table, but they've gone on an opposite run to QPR and they found themselves in the bottom three. Now, add that into what you were just going to say there. The fixtures that they've got coming now are tricky ones. They are not easy when your confidence is low.
They are, because they've got Sheffield United up next, which obviously Sheffield United, one of the top teams in the division, so an incredibly difficult game. They've then got Norwich away, who are better at home, and they've also got
just scored 5 over the weekend.
Yeah, they obviously just won 5-1. They've got their talisman striker back, Josh Sargent, who got on the score sheet straight away. I'm not sure if Sainz is going to be available, but he's close to returning, isn't he? So, that's a tricky game. They've then got Oxford at home, which is obviously absolutely massive. But look at the run Oxford are on. I don't think Rowett's lost a game yet since he's come in. They've been obviously on it. And
you want to go back there and prove a point as well.
Yeah. He's obviously got ties to Derby, so that's a very difficult game. They've then got QPR away, who we've just been talking about. I know they lost at the weekend, but banging form, really strong at home. So yeah, they've got a really difficult run. Next kind of 3 or 4 games are looking really tricky, and yeah, it's not looking good for him, mate. I'll make a prediction now. What they've got Millwall on the 22nd of Feb, I'd be shocked if Warne is still in charge come that game. I would have. I've just got a feeling that they're going to drop more points, and by that point,
from what you've just said, it could be 10 games without a win. 10
that's it.
10 defeats on the spin.
That's it. Yeah, it's not looking great for him. But look, I think I've said in the past, I've got a bit of a soft spot for Derby. Well, they've become a bit of a bogey team for West Brom, so I don't know why I'm saying this. We never do well against them, especially at their place. But I do, they've got a good fan base, obviously, and a Midlands club, East Midlands. I do think that they've got everything there, to be at the very least, a solid championship club. So, I do hope that he can turn the corner and start picking up some points and then pulling away from the bottom. But yeah, it's just not looking good.
The Derby chairman tonight, are you pulling the trigger, yes or no?
Tonight. You've just
sat down.
I just think I would, mate. I probably would. Like I said, I can see the pros in keeping hold of him, but I just think what's going to happen sooner rather than later is that the fans are going to force his hand. He's going to have to. So why not do it? Why not do it now? Bring someone in and see if you can get that new manager bounce, and get a reaction out the squad. I think I would do it. I would do it now. But I don't know. I feel like he's probably got a few more games left in him. I feel that they'll give him a couple more games. But if they get a couple of heavy defeats, then I think that they'll probably pull the trigger for sure.
Could be really, really difficult for Paul Warne looking at them thinking, where am I going to get a point from? Okay. We just mentioned 5 goals at Carrow Road, but what about 5 goals at the Hawthorns? Obviously, we were there. And let's be honest, to credit to Portsmouth, I actually thought they started okay. First kind of 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, that's it. It was a lot. There was a lot, myself included. Albion fans were surprised with the starting 11. Swift and Wallace, who've been almost frozen out by Corberan, were brought back in straight away by Mowbray. Colin Grant left out, who's probably been one of our better players so far this season. So there was a few surprises in the starting 11, and then Portsmouth, I thought they started really well, and I've got to mention their fans that filled out their away allocation. I thought their fans were absolutely brilliant, and with the fans right behind them, the first 20-25 minutes, I felt like they were the better team. They settled quicker than us, and they were posing more of a threat. But then, our opening goal was quite fortuitous in that it was half decent strike from Mowat, but goalkeeper's just simply got to save it. But it's obviously squirmed in underneath him, and then that just seemed to kind of release, the shackles from West Brom. We just kind of grew in confidence from there on in. Started playing with a bit of swagger and a bit more freedom, and just kind of tore Pompey apart then for the remainder of the half. And look, the game was probably won at half time, wasn't it? We definitely took our foot off the gas in the second half.
Changes come on, don't they? And maybe take a
changes. That's it. He gave a few players, a bit of respite and made a few changes. But even still, we managed to get another goal. So look, it was brilliant. What a start to life under Tony Mowbray. I was absolutely buzzing on the way back home. I've kind of I was talking to you before, and I've kind of put a couple of tweets up on X about, I just want Albion fans to calm down a little bit, because look, I don't want to be disrespectful to Portsmouth, but I think their fans would be the first to admit that they're very much a home team. They've struggled away from home throughout the season, haven't they? Like I said, not sounding too disrespectful to Portsmouth, but we've beaten a team who are obviously down towards the bottom of the Championship, who don't do well away from home. So some of the way some of our fans are going on, there's been some kind of criticism aimed at Carlos Corberan, which has really annoyed me. Such short memories by some.
Yeah, let's delve into that, because as you say, since over the last 48 hours, there's no, how can I put this? It's one way to come out and obviously praise the team and praise the result, which was great, but to bring Carlos Corberán into that and use him as some sort of use the match as some sort of stick to beat him with seemed a bit odd.
Well, it coincided. I don't know if you saw, but he's obviously gone to Valencia. They got absolutely annihilated by Barcelona at the new camp. I think it was last night. I think it was 6-1 or 7-1. They got absolutely smashed, and that was it. Then that was kind of the spark that lit the fire, and all the Albion fans were jumping on the fact we'd won 5-1 under Mowbray's first home game in charge. If we ever scored 5 under Corberán, etc., etc. And yeah, it really annoyed me, to be fair, because look, Corberán come in at a time when the club was an absolute mess. We were looking like we were potentially going to get relegated to League One when he came in. Did an unbelievable job to take us to where he did. So I just feel like any sort of criticism aimed towards him is just completely unnecessary and disrespectful. Look, I'm excited. I'm excited at the fact that Tony Mowbray is a very attack-minded manager. That's his philosophy. He's come out and said it, that he likes to attack, he likes to score goals. So we're going to see a different brand of football under Mowbray. And yes, it's probably going to be more exciting than it was under Carlos Corberán. But there's absolutely no need to start ripping into Corberán and making claims that he wasn't getting the best out of the players and so on, because I just think that's absolutely, I just think it's absolute nonsense. And like I said, completely disrespectful. So yeah, I've just kind of put a few tweets out there saying, just calm it down for now. Like, look, I'm as, I was very excited after the game at the weekend, looking forward to this new era under Tony Mowbray. But look, let's give it 10 or 12 games. Let's come up against some tougher opposition than Portsmouth. Like I said to you, I think we've got Sheffield Wednesday in a couple of weeks. That's a good test. See how we get on against Wednesday at home. He's obviously had a couple of weeks then to train with the players. Then we can maybe start making a more
measured assessment.
Measured assessment. That's exactly it, mate. So, but yeah, look, it was great to see 5 goals scored. It was good fun.
I only caught 4
there as well.
I went for a multi pie and missed the 4th one.
That's it, yeah.
Just on, you mentioned it about the lineup and maybe shocked at how he maybe shaped up. Actually, he said in his post match that he kind of glad he scored 5, because if they hadn't, then people would be saying, well, he started with no strikers and he had 2 strikers on the bench. He alluded to the fact that it's a similar actually style that he played when he was at Sunderland, using Amad Diallo in the kind of graded Diangana role that we saw at the weekend. Look, players came in at the weekend. I'll use Diangana. You mentioned Wallace earlier on, and Swift, who maybe looked dead and buried at the club maybe 4 or 5 months ago. Cut out a contract in the summer. Not a lot of fans wanting them to hang around, but there was a sense at the weekend that Mowbray's going to get these guys revitalised. He also spoke about this inner child, trying to find your inner child and playing. I think he was trying to play him with a freedom once more, and we certainly saw that in places.
Yeah, that's it. I think, look, it's like anything, isn't it? When a new manager comes in, there's always going to be players that were, like you said, out, kind of frozen out on the bench. They've got that opportunity now to impress, and there's obviously that chance that they will suit better the new manager's approach, his tactics, how he wants to play the game, and so on. And yeah, I think when he came in, he said straight away, he talked about Swift and Wallace right from the off, saying that he really rates them. They've been in the Championship a long time, so he knows what they're capable of, what kind of players they are, etc. So look, it's good, because under Corberán we had a very effective starting 11, that knew their roles, were difficult to beat. But then when we brought players off the bench, it was almost like that kind of killed everything, if that makes sense, in that they were just almost ineffective. It was very rare that players would come off the bench and have any sort of impact. Whereas, if Mowbray can start getting a tune out of the likes of Swift, Wallace, Diangana, these guys who've been on the bench more under Corberán, then that's just better for the squad as a whole, isn't it? Look, again, I'm going to sound a bit kind of skeptical here, a little bit pessimistic. Well, not normally I'm very optimistic when it comes to Albion, but Diangana, Swift, and Wallace. I think Wallace as well are all out of contract at the end of the season. So again, I'm just saying to people, I'd take it with a little pinch of salt. Okay, the new managers come through the door, their contracts up in a few months' time. Look, is that playing a part as well? Like, is that why we're seeing a bit of an improvement out of them? A bit, at the end of the day, if it gets us into the playoffs and gets us promoted, I don't care, to be frank with you. But what I'm saying is, again, all the Albion fans are kind of jumping on the Tony Mowbray bandwagon, going, he's some sort of genius because he's now got a tune out of Swift, Wallace, and Diangana. Well, look, we know that those three are very capable at this level. They're all, all good championship players on their day. They're most definitely thinking about what's going to play out this summer as well. They need to start performing a bit better if they want to get a good deal, whether that's at the Albion or whether that's with someone else. So, yeah, I just think let's not get too carried away from it. Like I said, there's plenty of games still to go. There's much more difficult games on the horizon. Let's play a few more out and then see how we're looking.
Okay, three other players that I think whose contracts aren't up for negotiation, then who I thought stood out were Furlong, Johnston, and Fellows. I thought they seemed to, really get a hold of the tactical idea and what especially the two wide men. They were just, as soon as they started running at the fullbacks, Albion looked like they were going to score every time they went up the park.
Yeah, the biggest one for me, mate, is Johnston, because I'm not going to lie to you, I was really worried because at the start of he was absolutely fantastic for us when he came in loan in January last season. Really helped us kind of push on and cement that playoff spot. And then we signed him permanently, and it took him a while to get going. And understandably, the Albion fans were kind of amongst themselves saying, was that just a bit of a fluke? Is this the real Johnston? And like we were saying at the weekend, there was a lot of Celtic fans. I remember when we signed him who were happy to see the back of him. They didn't rate him whatsoever. So we were starting to get worried. But since towards the end of last year, kind of going into January, it's like a flip has been switched, and that's I think, to be fair, that kind of it started towards the end of Corberan's reign, and then it really kind of took off whilst Brunt and those guys were in temporary charge, and obviously he had an absolute belting game at the weekend against Portsmouth. So yeah, that was the one I was pleased with the most, because it really looks like his confidence is sky high at the minute. He's starting to chip in with a few goals and a few assists. And he's, it's looking like, that 3 million we spent on him is going to be money well spent. So, and I think, he's the kind of player that is going to love playing under Tony Mowbray. He is going to be given the freedom to express himself, take players on. If he gets tackled 3 times out of 4, then so be it. That one time you beat 2 players like he did against Portsmouth and sets up a goal. Well, that's what counts, isn't it? That's what matters. So, yeah, I was really pleased to see him put in a top performance. He's looking like the player that we had when he came in from Celtic on loan last season.
Okay. We'll come back to Fellows, I'm sure, when you do your Championship English lineup in a moment. Okay, so a couple of transfers. We'll start with Louis Barry. We've spoken about him numerous times on this pod. It's come out today that he's having a medical at Hull to join them on loan until the end of the season. You've got strong thoughts on this and Hull's recruitment process as a whole. I just want to say before we start that I think Hull are doing good business. Obviously, they're out of the bottom 3 now, so that's maybe proving the point. And they are going in the right direction. They were, breathtaking on Friday night, and the Hull fans will be hoping that continues. But you've got a slightly different take.
Yeah, I just think, look, we had the whole lad on, didn't we, in the last podcast we did, and we were obviously talking about new additions, and back me up. I was saying that a couple of the guys they brought in, I thought they were really good additions for the situation that Hull find themselves in. The likes of Geldart, the likes of Crooks, who have both already chipped in with some goals and making an immediate impact. And yeah, like you said today, it looks like they're adding Louis Barry to the mix as well. Which, look, it's from what I've read, it's the vast majority of the championship were after his signature. So that in itself, it's a real coup for Hull to be the ones that convince him, to join them. I just think the point I was making to you when we were having a chat earlier was just and it kind of backs up what was it Nathaniel, the lad's name we had on, wasn't it, on the pod previously? Was it just it's just this kind of weird scattergun approach that the owner just seemingly has, in that it's like, well, I'm just gonna make 10 signings in the hope that 2 or 3 come off. That very much seems to be his approach. And what I was saying to you was, I just think you've got to be careful. I think it's a fine line between having a squad. I always think you've got to get that balance amongst the squad. I just think I'm sure they've probably gone over 40 players, surely, in that squad currently. And they're going to have to trim that down before they have to register the players at the end of the transfer window. So, yeah, look, I agree with you. I think they've made some good additions, but I just find it just the way they're going about their business just a bit odd. I just do. I just feel like he's just kind of bringing anyone and anyone in. There's we talked about Crooks and Geldhart, but they've brought in Lincoln from Fenerbahce. Well, that one just completely went under the radar. I didn't even see that one get announced. We know about that guy from Monaco, which seems quite an exciting transfer. Then they brought in the lad from Blackpool, Joseph, which they spent quite a bit of money on him, who's a striker. So you'd think, well, they're spending £2.5-3 million on this lad. You think, well, the logic then is for him to maybe become their number one choice up front. But then they've then gone and brought in Barry. So you're thinking, well, where's Joseph going to play in this? And they've got, what's the lad who the João Pedro up front, who's for the struggles that they've had, he's not had too bad a season. When I've seen him play, he's always been a threat. He knows where the back of the net is. He's scored some good goals. So this is what I'm saying. Like, all of a sudden, you've gone from having one striker to now you've got 3 who, in theory, all of them will be expecting to start, because there's no way Aston Villa will be letting Barry go to Hull without the promise and the guarantees that he's going to be playing more weeks than not. So
that was the point I wanted to ask you, was, do you think that's why he's gone to Hull? Because there has been reassurances, because I've seen fans of other championship clubs almost mocking Barry for going there and saying, look, you've left Stockport, who could have got promoted, to Hull, who are probably going to get relegated, which, by the way, I don't think they will now. You can nail that on and clip me up as much as you like, but I don't think Hull will go down. However, do you think that's why he's going there? Maybe it's more Villa saying, look, yeah, X, Y, and Z have said they'll take you, but there's no guarantee you're going to play. We need you to go and play.
Yeah, but mate, I'll be absolutely astonished if he goes there and he doesn't get much game time. I reckon that would have been the reason Villa have chosen Hull, is that, look, we spoke about Sellés. I think he's a very promising young head coach. He's, I wouldn't say he's attack-minded. He does seem very capable of kind of mixing up his style and approach, but, he does like to kind of pass through the lines. And like I said, he very much fits the mold of the kind of modern young head coach, doesn't he? So, I think they would have liked the fact that he's now there in charge and how he's looking to take the club forward. But 100%, it would have been, Hull have said, look, if he comes, we're going to play him every week if he's fit. And that's why Villa have said, okay, you've got him, because that's what we want. We want him to go to a club for the second half of the season, and he's going to play every week. But that's the point I'm making to you. Now, all of a sudden, they've got 3-4 strikers, and they're going to be having to pick one every week. And in midfield, the same applies to midfield. You're going to, from struggling early on. Well, they weren't struggling early on in the season. From what Nathaniel was saying in the last pod, they've always had this massive squad there, and they're just adding to it even more now. So you've now got this situation where, you've got even more midfield. I guess the point I'm making is it going to become difficult for Sellés to keep them all happy? That's the point I'm trying to make. Does it become a challenge for him to keep everyone sweet, and then he's almost feeling like he's inclined to change things up because he's got this big squad and he's made so many signings in January, and then does that start having an impact? I don't know. Look, time will tell, but I guess that's the point I'm just making. Is I just think you can, if you go too crazy, look at Nottingham Forest. I think that's a great example. That season they went into the Premier League with Steve Cooper. They went absolutely bonkers, didn't they, and signed all these players. Some of them were some good additions, guys that are doing well for him now. But everyone was saying they're just signing too many players. Like, there's no way he's going to be able to keep all those players happy. It's going to be almost impossible for him to keep, that dressing room, harmony within that dressing room without upsetting people. And then does that cause issues and so on? So I think that's the point I was just making, was I think they definitely made some good additions. And look, I agree with you. I think the additions they're making will be enough to keep them up. But I just think he's just a bit mad, their owner is. I think that's the only way to describe it. I think he's just like, yeah, bring him in. Just give,
which is very similar to the Forest owner when he got up. I think and it's similarities in the fact they're both involved in other clubs as well, and it may just be that kind of mindset. One other one that's popped up today is Richard Coney, someone who you were talking about last week as a potential maybe a link for West Brom as looking for a striker, but looks like Luton have gone in with a third bid of £6 million for him tonight.
Yeah, I've seen that, mate. As soon as I saw 6 million, then I knew there wasn't much chance of us bringing him in. I'd initially read that they were looking for about 3 million, so I thought, we might be able to throw our hat in the mix. But 6 million. Look, we've been proud. Look, I think it'll be a good addition for Luton if they can bring him in. It's
more great business from Peterborough, as you were saying at the weekend.
Oh yeah. Well, no, he's at Wycombe, mate, isn't he?
It's my catchy and actual moment.
It's your Nacho moment there. It's 1-1 now, mate. He's at Wycombe. So that's obviously why it's Bloomfield, isn't it?
Obviously knows him from
Bloomfield from Wycombe. So that's where he knows him from. Like I said, I think he's joint top scorer with Barry, who's obviously left Stockport. So he's had a cracking season. I think there's quite a few Championship teams who've had their eye on him. But yeah, 6 million. Look, that's a good chunk of money, isn't it? Look, if he can come up, if he can come in, and keep Luton up, then that 6 million is going to be worth it, isn't it? But again, it's such an odd one with Luton because in Morris and Adebayo, I just feel I'm so surprised that those two haven't done a lot more, especially Adebayo. I thought those two would have been perfect for the Championship. I expected both of them to score a shed load. I think Morris has got about 7 or 8, but still, I expected them to be doing much better than they have. So yeah, him coming in possibly means one of those guys is moving out. But yeah, I think it'll be a good addition. But look, again, we've been talking about Warne. I know obviously they got rid of Edwards and Bloomfield's come in, but I said to you, didn't I? Look, I'm gonna keep reminding you that I felt like that was a real kind of risky appointment given the circumstances Luton were in. I was questioning whether the guy's done enough to warrant the appointment. That he hasn't got off to the best of starts, has he? He's lost a couple of games on the bounce. They're getting close. Well, where do they sit now? I think they're
in the relegation zone. Yeah.
They're in the relegation zone now, aren't they? And as soon as you get in there, especially now in the kind of final leg of the season, the pressure, it's on now, isn't it? So
because the guys that have been in there for the last kind of 10 weeks have now turned it round. They're going the other way, and it's these guys that have fallen in that have just been slowly dropping down.
That's what I was going to say about Derby earlier, and I forgot to mention it. Is like, that's it. They're this poor run they're on is happening at the worst possible time, isn't it? We're into the kind of final third of the season. It's the business end of the season. It's the worst time to just hit a really terrible run. And Luton, they're not far behind Derby, are they? And like you said, they haven't got that initial new manager bounce from Bloomfield coming in. Maybe a couple of new signings might give them that. I know they're looking to bring in Kona. They brought in Isaiah Jones, who I think was a good signing from Middlesbrough. So, I still feel that they've got the players there available to him to to get them out of trouble. But we've said it, haven't we? I feel like it's more of some sort of mental mindset issue with Luton in that they've just, they obviously didn't do too well. They give it a good shot in the Premier League, but you're losing, aren't you, most weeks in the Premier League? You've come down into the Championship. There was maybe a bit of expectance, a bit of arrogance, maybe that, you were going to hold your own and you were going to be challenging towards the top end of the season. You've realised how tough it is. You're still in that rut. You're losing games, and it's just continued, hasn't it, throughout?
I think I agree with what you said, but the fact they're coming down, the arrogance of maybe we don't need to freshen up too much here. We've got a decent squad, and I just think you looked at Sheffield United, Burnley, even Leeds to a degree, Sunderland especially, just all tweaking the squads, bringing one or two in. Luton didn't do enough of that for me, and it seemed like I've said it numerous times, all the money's been ring fenced for a new stadium, which is obviously their prerogative, but maybe a stadium they're going to be playing in League One if that's because that's another tricky division to get out of. You look at how the race this season, there would be a few of them left behind for next season as well. It could be.
Well, and all the guys that we're talking about that we feel are Championship level, a lot of those will undoubtedly move if they were to get relegated. So, it's very much back to the drawing board for them if they go back down into League One. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Okay, then. Finish on a bit of a lighter note. You've obviously, on the back of the story we started with, Thomas Tuchel saying he'll pick English players from the Championship. You have come up with a Championship all English 11 that we're going to chew through. So I will shut my notepad and put my feet up and listen to you.
Mate, I'm going to get some.
What formation have we gone first?
I've gone for. I am a big fan of the old 4-2-3-1, so that's what I've gone for. Okay. And also because, mate, when I get to it, I was struggling for a striker. I honestly was, mate. Like I felt I was able to kind of comfortably pick a team, but then when I got to a striker, like you're going to probably laugh when I tell you who my striker was, but then I
can't wait.
I'll challenge you to pick someone else. Okay. Like honestly, so all right.
So hold on. Are you doing it on just the best English player in that position, or someone who could play for England?
So no, I've done. Yeah, it's a bit of both really. So I've kind of I've picked some guys who are having good seasons this season, but then again, I've thought to myself, well, these guys are probably the best you could have, who you'd have in that position at this moment in time. Do you see what I mean? So again, it was. We'll go through it and then see what you think. So in goals, I went with Cooper. We're both obviously big fans of Cooper. We were talking about James Trafford earlier on, but I just personally feel that Cooper's a more better, well-rounded goalkeeper than Trafford. He's a bit older as well, so big fan. So I went Cooper in goal, and then my back four was Bogle for Leeds at right back, who I think is having a stellar season with Leeds. He's been top draw. And then I went Egan Riley at Burnley, who, well, look, stats speak for themselves. Burnley have conceded about 3 goals all season or whatever it is. He's played a big part of that. This one might be a little bit of a surprise.
By the way, still not conceded tonight. They are still 0-0 with Leeds in that Monday night game.
So this one, a bit of a surprise. I went with Pollock at Watford, who again, he's having a good. Watford are obviously having a very good season, and he's probably been one of their standout players. Again, I was trying to. I think
he was tipped by the Watford last that we had on the Football Shirt Collective we had on earlier on.
Yeah, that's it. And I think he will be destined for bigger things. Young lad still. So left back, this was a tough one, man, because like I said earlier on, I think there's some cracking left backs in the Championship. But for me, I kind of narrowed it down between Burrows at Sheffield United and Kirkin at Sunderland. I went for Burrows in the end because I just like he gets forward. He does more in attack for me than Kirkin does. He's scored quite a few goals. He's got a few assists, and he can play in other positions as well. I really do like him. I think he's a top player. Great signing for Sheffield United. So I went Burrows in the end. Then my two kind of central midfielders, I went for Joe Bellingham, who we obviously talked about at the start of the show. And then this was a bit of a toss-up between a few. I spoke again earlier, didn't I, about Hackney and Arblaster, but I went with Brownhill at Burnley. Again, I'm a big fan of Brownhill. I think he's absolutely brilliant. He scores plenty of goals, gets lots of assists. He's obviously their captain, important player for him. So I went for Brownhill. And then this might be a bit of a controversial one. See what you think. On the right, I went Tom Fellows. Look, I'm not just doing that because of my Albion.
Had to be in there. He had to.
Yeah. Well, look, he's an England under-21 international now. He's had a few caps for the under-21s. He's got the most assists in the division. So I just think that kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? And then in attacking mid, I went for Jack Rodoni at Coventry. Again, I'm a big fan of his, and I didn't realise. I know he's done okay, but then I didn't realise he's actually done a lot better than I thought. And I think under Lampard, he's kind of rejuvenated him a little bit. He's really pushed on since Lampard come in. You know, you'd expect that, wouldn't you, with the type of player that Lampard was. So I think he's getting close to double figures for assists, chipped in with a few goals.
I think on Thursday night, actually, we will talk about Coventry. We'll have a chat about them Thursday night. So,
well, they're starting to get in that playoff conversation again, aren't they? The run that they're on, they're kind of under the radar a little bit. Left mids, attacking left winger. This was a tricky one, mate. Again, I was short on options. At first I was half tempted to put Doherty there for Luton, who can play left mid as well as left back. But in the end, I went for Scott Twine at Bristol.
Oh, yeah.
I know he plays he plays more centrally for them, but I kind of cheated a bit there because
is he the best set piece taker in the division?
I think so, mate. He's every time
he steps up on a postage stamp every time, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, even if you look back at his time at Burnley and then MK Dons before that, mate, he scored a ridiculous amount of set pieces. So yeah, you're absolutely spot on. He's got a worldie in him as well, hasn't he? He's scored a few crackers, shots outside the box. So I went for Scott Twine, and in this as well, I was struggling, mate. Like honestly, I ended up going for Morris at Luton, and that was because I was struggling. And the only reason I went for him was because he scored about 12 goals in the Premier League last season, and he's come down. I know Luton are having a crap season, but again, I think he scored about 8-9 for Luton this season. So it's not. But then look, I put to you. Give me someone better. I was really struggling, mate. Do you know?
Is Tom Cannon not English?
That was my first one, mate. He's Irish. Right. He's Irish. So he was the one I put straight in, and then straight away I was like, he's Irish. I can't put him in. Then I was scratching around, mate.
Tyrese Campbell, is he English? He's English.
Tyrese Campbell's English, but again, I don't.
I like him.
Yeah. I just thought I needed a bit of a target man. That's what I was going for. A bit of a number 9.
For that game against Latvia, you wanted Big Morris up top.
Colin Morris, mate, get him in. That's the one I'm going to get some pelters. Look, if anyone's watching, me.
I think it's a great question. Actually, we'll put it on X tomorrow. Who is the best English striker in the division?
Do you know what? No, look, I'll put that team up as well on X tomorrow. You know what? I'm quite happy with that. And if I get some pelters, and I'm going to challenge people, we'll pick. Give me your team. Let's see your team, and then we'll compare them.
Would you qualify
with that? Yeah. I think I think the group most definitely. Mate. I think. Look, I tell you what, that team would have a chance at staying in the Premier League. Half a chance staying in the Premier League, I reckon.
Listen, it's not about the Premier League. It's whether they can go and win the World Cup. I don't know if they get out of the group. I don't know if they get out of the group.
But look, mate. Look, I got it up on my little thingy and everything, mate. I don't know. You can't see it. The shine.
We'll share it tomorrow, and we'll have a bit of a debate about that on the socials. Listen, that's over the hour mark, so we'll call it wraps there. Thursday night, as you say, no midweek stuff. So we will try and get a guest on every week chat. Get a Coventry fan on. That'd be actually fantastic. Any Coventry fans watching, if you know a Coventry fan, tag them, let them see what we do, and we'll get them involved. As always, Tom, an absolute pleasure. Good shift. If you want to get involved with Tom's team, then as I say, we'll put up on the socials tomorrow, and we'll have a chat about that. But from me and from him, see you on Thursday.